welcome Susan Gasser. So Susan Gasser, you're a distinguished scientist, leader in the field of biomedical research. You studied at the University of Chicago biophysics, then completed the PhD at the University of Basel in biochemistry, before a postdoc at the University of Geneva. As a group leader at the Swiss Institute of Experimental Cancer Research, you made significant contribution to the understanding of the chromosome structure and long-range chromatic organization. Your leadership as a director of the Friedrich Micher Institute for Biomedical Research has propelled the institute to become also the one of European leading research institution, leading on topics of neuronal sequencity, epigenetics, self-fate decision, and quantitative biology. Recognizing your outstanding achievement, you've been elected also to prestigious scientific academies. Thanks already, I think, in the name of all, for all the contribution you made, but let's have a seat and cover some questions.
Good evening.
So Susan Gasser, your dedication to cancer is really commendable. What brought you into this field?
Well, actually, I had two runs in with cancer. The first one was as a young group leader. I joined the Swiss Institute for Cancer Research in Eppelange. And actually, at that time, we were studying the molecular mechanisms of cell division. If that means anything to you, it's actually the control that keeps cells from dividing or driving their division. Of course, that's miscontrolled in cancer. It was very basic. Then I was a professor in Geneva, and then I ran an institute in Basel, and then when I moved back to Lausanne, I was asked if I would lead the ISREC Foundation. So the ISREC Foundation has created a new institute, which is just across the street from the CHUV, and in it we unite scientists from EPFL, UNIL, UniGenève, the HUG, and the CHUV, which is probably the first time they've all worked together. In any case, with the sole goal of translational cancer research. The reason that's important is that in the 20 years that passed, we have understood the molecular mechanisms that drive cancer, and we have many medications that will address those mechanisms. And so by placing clinicians and scientists shoulder to shoulder, we're facilitating the transition of knowledge from science to medicine. And that's my goal with cancer research.
Excellent, thank you so much. You're also at the board of many companies in boardrooms, and how do you and your leadership make decisions? Because every day, I mean, you have also that weight of all those decisions, so can you share that with us?
Well, actually, in my own institute, especially when we were making hiring decisions or decisions as a committee, I always would break the session toward the end of the day and not make a decision and tell them that we'd reconvene in the morning. Because I found that, you know, the unconscious bias, it's very often something that happens in a group and is an immediate response. Whereas if you sleep on it, usually the rational part takes over, and in the morning you see things differently. So my advice is don't hurry.
Yeah, it reminds me also when we discussed a bit, you said, look, when everyone's the same decision or same opinion, I stop and break because it means it's a wrong decision.
Yes, well, not always, but indeed, I find there is often opinion leaders, yeah. and we have to watch out for people who are dynamic in the sense of overwhelming rational discussion.
So one of the things that you're most proud of when we talked was all the programs and everything you did to advance women. And actually I had to convince Susan to also talk about her work because she was mainly mentioning, I'm proud of many things, but this is the one I'm most proud. Maybe you can share what you did concretely to advance women.
So actually for the first 20 years when I was climbing the ladder of academic research, I tried to ignore the fact that there were no other women professors around, or very, very few. But then, I was an institute head, and then I was appointed director or the chairperson of the Swiss National Science Foundation Gender and Equality Commission. And then I couldn't ignore it anymore. And we thought about what we should do, because I learned that from 1993 to 2013, the number of women professors in Switzerland, Swiss universities, increased only from 6 to 11%. And this is certainly not representing the fraction of women who were doing PhDs, 50%, or the fraction of women who were postdoctoral researchers, 40%. So there was some impediment to women advancing in academia. So the committee and I created a program which was aimed at career development of women, not only in science, but in academics, that was targeted directly at this time when we saw women dropping out of academia. It was at what we call the postdoc level. It was prior to becoming named a professor. It was after the PhD. And so we made a program of career development just for 5 years. I have to finish this. 5 years, supporting them with very flexible funding in this interim. And we coupled it with mentoring and networking so that they would be stronger candidates for professorships. It was a big hit, I have to say. They've discontinued it. I'm no longer chair of the committee, but things happen. And we had about 80 or 100 women, 80 to 100 women had this PRIMA fellowship, and I hope that kept them in academia.
And 80 to 100, huh? So yeah. Amazing. Well done. Well, very good. So we'll move on to a few questions here. Cancer is so prevalent today that it seems that everyone is either affected by it or directly or known someone who is. Is there hope?
There's definitely hope. I think the fact is there are a lot more cancer survivors, and the other fact is we're living much longer. So this is why we see cancer actually increasing, but also the age factor is major. But what I would say is there are many, many new treatments, and with the advent of artificial intelligence and digital information, we're able to better target the disease than ever before. So this is really the phase we're in right now, is getting the scientific advances into the medical practice, and then I think we'll be in better shape.
Okay, which is linked a bit, thanks to you in the question. Could you share some insight into your research finding and the potential impact on understanding diseases and development treatment? So it links nicely.
Well, it's interesting. My institute in Basel was called Biomedical Research, Friedrich Miescher, but it was under the umbrella of Novartis. So I was very close to the development of disease, not disease, sorry. Ooh, sorry, the development of treatments. And what I learned is that, in fact, there are treatments. There is a lot about commercialization of medications that actually slows down or actually makes it difficult for us to benefit from all that we know. So what I've learned is that if you're sick, go to the academic center hospital or the university hospital that is the most advanced in that disease, because there is always an expert that knows something more than your neighbor. And this is what I would advise.
Okay. COVID crisis and social network highlighted that everyone wrongly believes to be a specialist. How will scientists regain the authority they deserve?
By being right. No, I don't know. There's no simple answer. I mean, scientists don't know everything, and that's why we come across as either being a specialist in some small area or pretending we know. Actually, I think most scientists are more on the modest side when they're confronted with something like a COVID pandemic. It's difficult to manage anything that nobody has seen before. And I think I actually don't find scientists arrogant. I'm probably the only one in the room. But actually, I think we're much more err on the side of saying, well, we don't really understand that fully. And then people get uneasy.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to young women going into research?
Oh, it's the perfect career. Not only because I liked it. Actually, research lets you manage your whole life yourself because, in fact, whether you do an experiment at 8 in the morning or 9 at night is up to you. And basically, it gives you lots of freedom. It does have a pretty challenging and I would say competitive career path. But on the other hand, there are always ways to find research activities in industry or in small startups, and that it's not always the most competitive route that you have to take. To me, I think it feeds the natural human curiosity, drive to understand, and women have this as much as men. And so I have to say, I think it's a wonderful career.
Thank you, Susan.